middle of the wild grasses on a vacant lot, and it hasn't been mown. So all these fabulous grasses have emerged over the spring. I'm seeing an enormous variety of resources. Fabulous long grasses, still green enough to bend right over and manipulate into all sorts of shapes. So that's what this DVD is going to be all about. All the wonderful ways you can use wild grasses for a maximum effect in your flower arranging. So we have lovely green stems and all these beautiful wild grasses that normally we don't see because we mow our lawns. You're also going to need some floral foam that I have wet, and a nondescript tall vase. Inside the vase is old dry floral foam. You could use newspapers, you could use stones, but this is heavy enough so I don't need the weight. And also some copper netting. This is available in floristry supply shops. It is squared netting. If you can't find squared netting, chicken netting will do. This is just going to be easier. Fill the top part of this container with the floral foam that is wet. Push it in, and then you can see there are still spaces there. It's quite high above the rim. If you want your flowers to go right around here, just add some more floral foam on those corners. The best way to cut this copper netting is with tin snips. The right tool for the job is always the best way. And what length do you want? This now depends on your perspective. It's going to go from here. It's going to go down here and curl to here. So how long you want that lovely swirl to be? I'm going to say to here. So with tin snips, it's a very quick snip job and you're not wrecking any of your tools. Take your grass and ask yourself, where do you want the seed heads to feature? Do you want it like an ocean wave, so it's going to be the froth on the top, or do you want it coming out from the middle? At this point, it's your own creativity, and thread the grasses through. If you don't have wild grasses because you live in a city, you can do this with commercial beer grass, steel grass, and get a different effect. I'm just going to spend time now threading them through. You can do 2 or 3 at once. It makes it a lot faster. Randomly threading them in and out. They don't have to go over one, under one, just where it's natural for them to bend without breaking, so that the seed heads are all creating this amazing feature. So I'm going to work away on that until I've completely gone from one side of the wire netting to the other. I'm thinking it should perhaps take half a bucket of these grasses. Having gone right across, remember you've still got these little copper edges where you cut it. These are wonderful because this is where you can clip any of your unruly reeds underneath them. So this one here was unruly. You can bend that piece of copper over and it holds it in place. At the same time, of course, it's making that edge safer. People aren't going to get pricked by it because you're bending them over. Okay. Now you can test it to see how it's looking so far and whether you're going to need to add more grasses to your top piece and how it's going as far as looking down the bottom. Also make a decision of where you're going to put your next lot of seed heads and if you're going to put them anywhere at all. Fabulous thing about this is, of course, that they will dry, but as they will dry the most beautiful golden brown. So you will have this piece for ages and ages. So are you going to put your next lot of seed heads so they go from here and then sweep down to the ground, or you're going to turn them around and have that all green and have your seed heads here? It's all about your own personal sense of design. You could also, of course, have them scattered all the way through, all the way down, to connect the top to the bottom, because in here are going to go different sorts of flowers. It's going to be, that's your call for doing your own one. You notice I'm just keeping on threading these in through here. Anything that isn't going where you want it to go, a tiny little bit of green or copper wire around them will fix them in place. Because I have a random sort of a nature, I'm going to thread them through here all the way to the bottom there, and then have them neatly just cut off across there in a line. So that was just only the guide. Take them off here. Now carry on threading for me from here right the way down and up to there. So we've got this lovely textured sweep of all these wild grasses. It's never going to be elegant, it's always going to be in the style of nature. So you have to embrace that and work with the materials that way. Here's the end across here. I'm going to cut these off as evenly as I can across here. You could cut these as zigzags, as arrows, any way you like really. Each grass will shrink at a different rate, and so if you're in doubt, use a little bit of florist adhesive, cold glue we call it colloquially, to attach them all. Fold over these bottom edges, fold over the copper. I've got these very long mossing pins, they're sometimes called U-pins. If you can't find them to buy in a forestry wholesalers, you can make them yourself with heavy gauge forest wire just into a U, with as long a stem on them as you can. Take your construction, decide how you want the curve to go on it. Put one of these big pins on every intersection of the copper wire. By pushing them in on every intersection of the wire, it's giving it an incredibly stable mechanic for moving it. But it also leaves open the gaps in between the square for adding the flower stems. Even though this is an arrangement using grasses and natural things, we still have to have our design elements and principles. So we've got here quite a tizzy look, so we have to contrast that in some way, either with colour or form. So I'm going to contrast it with form, very bold. Lilies grow wild in the same paddock actually as these, but it's a lovely contrasting form. Calendulas, that's self-seed, but also another contrasting form and colour. And then these little things, little spraxias, which are taking on a little bit of the purple that you can see some of those. So we're going to start with the spraxias, and I'm going to place them quite randomly. This is not an English style arranging, this is still of the wildflower meadow look. Vegetative design is what it's called. Things grow together, but they don't radiate out from the centre. Then we add the next layer, which is the calendulas. Remembering how deep you made that wet floral foam, don't push them in further than that foam will go. You certainly don't want them ending up going right through to the dry. But once again, straighten up and down, placing them straight up and down as they would grow, rather than radiating out from the centre. And of course they always grow, what I do in my garden, in the wildflower patch, always grow in little groups. Looking in all directions, and you get to appreciate the sides of these forms as well as the tops, and also different heights. And then we have the big contrast, which are these great big lilies. Now, if you have problem getting these into floral foam, you can put toothpicks into the base there. And now you can see why I picked the calendulas, because of that beautiful yellow pistil coming out of there. And this one has the tiniest amount of pink in it, which will go with the Spraxias. And so there it is, one way to use your wild grasses that is unexpected, very modern, and a whole lot of fun. If you don't like this vegetative look, which can be quite messy, you can use exactly the same technique using steel grass or bear grass, which is quite easy to find from a flower wholesaler, and it will end up much smoother. This is one that I did a couple of years ago with the flatter grasses, and because it's flat there's no additional textures here. Once it dried, I sprayed it silver, and it's still used all the time, but you can see it's a completely different look. Even if it hadn't been sprayed, it is far more structured, far more formilinear, which means solid lines rather than the wild grass look. So that's still using grasses, but a totally different look. It's been 5 days, and I'm going to show you in this next arrangement what you can do to carry on the life of this grass mat that you've made. The frame itself is fine. The grasses are just slightly changing colour. They will eventually end up a beautiful golden brown. You're going to need a container that is shorter than the width of your grass mesh. This container is plastic, and 4 holes have been drilled around it. Some wire, this is bullion wire that is the same colour as the copper netting, just to keep everything in uniform. And if you look over here, I have got garden flowers that are big, bold forms, roses that are full blown, Canophila, which is also known as red hot poker, lilies. So this is going to give this contrast of form to all it is. Put the container right on the end and curl it, tucking in these ends, keeping this part as straight as you can, and round. These ends in as you go. Put your thumb on the end of the bit of wire. This is just to hold it all tight on, and go round and go round randomly. And that's the beginning of a very cool container. But we really do need to secure it a little bit more to that plastic base inside. Find a little hole that was drilled in the plastic, put the wire through it, and the wire is now going over the top of the vase, and then 1, 2, 3 times round to this being firmly attached to the wire. And of course I'm going to do that for all 4 holes. Just finish off this outside piece by securing another piece of your decorative coloured wire. Now not only does this add the colour of the grid to the outside, but it's drawing in all of the pieces of grass that were hanging about. You can use 2 or 3 different coloured wires, you could use decorative yarn, all sorts of things just to tie it all in. If your grasses have got to the stage of dropping their seed, there is a really cool trick. You can just get the cheapest hairspray you can find, because the cheapest hairspray is actually the stickiest, and hairspray all the way over it, and that will act as a glue. You can also get a commercial spray glue, and that will glue all of those seed heads together as well. With wild grasses, don't be tempted to throw the seeds into your compost, you'll end up with weeds everywhere. Either throw them back in the paddock you got them from or put them out in the rubbish. I use a water container. I always add flower food if I'm using flower tubes and water rather than floral foam. Bit of shape. And then all this water can be tipped straight down into that container. Don't need to fill it up obviously. Just enough for those stems to get in there. The cool thing about the grass grid is it's got holes in it, and as the grass dries it is going to shrink, so you've got really good holes to find things, and this is where you can put the flowers so they go through and into the water. Now, to prepare these homegrown garden roses, I've cut all of the foliage off from at the bottom, and you just flick the thorns off by putting your finger sideways on them. You can get rose strippers, which are little bits of metal that do the same job. Garden roses don't last nearly as long as commercial ones, but what is amazing about them is they will come to full bloom like this. They smell divine, and so this design is wonderful for a dinner party, people who are coming for a day, because they really will only last a couple of days. And find yourself a little hole into the water, and so is exactly where you want it. Now, if it's not close enough to where you want it here, you can tie it back again with a little bit of that wire. I've cut these with very, very long stems. This one's not so important having the thorns off, because this one's going to go in through the top. And the reason I'm doing that is so when people look down inside, they're going to see the rose leaves and just the top of the design. And because this rose isn't going through the grid, but it's just sitting right into the centre there, I'm just going to secure it to the grid with a little bit of this same bullion wire. So then we keep adding. Come around this side, make decisions at this point of where you're going to place things. I'm trying to keep this arrangement low. I don't want to go really, really high like you would with an English style design. I'm trying to keep it low and interesting. So there it is, wild grasses, garden flowers. If you don't have access to a garden and you can only buy flowers, go for big round forms. A lovely bunch of 10 roses, 20 roses, anything like this. Calla lilies would be another one, because you could actually wind them round the container. If you had 5 or 6 beautiful callas, put them through here and then right the way around. It'd be absolutely gorgeous. Have a go with it, either this way or the other way, and make it your own. This design has to be long and narrow. It's for a leaner on the bank, the local bank. So I have started with a long plastic tray. These are manufactured so they take exactly 2 blocks of floral foam with the foam about this high. I don't want that, so I have got 1 block of floral foam that I have wet. So I'm going to cut it right down the middle. One hump goes there, and one hump. So to cover it up, I am going to use these beautiful pieces of aspidistra. You can get it in this beautiful green or variegated. Just fabulous, fabulous forms. It also, interestingly enough, comes left and right handed. One side is always smaller than the other. Because I want this to last as long as possible, I'm going to cut the stem very, very short. Push it in this end here. I have some small pronged U-pins. The whole aim of this is to cover up all the floral foam. Another green one. One more variegated one. These come from a private garden, so I got a great variety of size and length. I can go well past the edges of the tray. So when you're doing this part of the design, just go with the flow. Where the leaf wants to go is where it goes. Extend it out the ends as much as you want to. So that is my base. Beautiful, undulating, glorious aspidistras. A walk in the paddock has presented me with two treasures. One is Queen Anne's lace. Also, a variety of it is carrotweed. Lasts forever, being a wildflower, and it is a lovely contrast to the aspidistra. The other thing that revealed itself was paspalum, the bane of everybody's life if they try to have a beautiful lawn, but they have a fantastic quality, and that's as they bend without breaking. So if you can't get hold of bear grass, steel grass, the conventional things you use when you want to bend, paspalum is the key. So I've picked quite a few, and now we can assemble the arrangement with just 3 beautiful little arum lilies. Start with the carrotweed. Wherever you want to hide one of your little mossing pins is a great place to start to put it, and push it through the aspidistra and deep down into the arrangement. None of this is going to be high. And of course, by pushing them down, you're putting it into that floral foam. So there are those 4 in, and now as a contrast, I'm going to put in the arums. And the arums, I'm going to float along the top. Just push them straight in. If you have trouble getting them in, use a toothpick to start them off and check that they're into that floral foam. You can lay them down across the aspidistra, just lay them down and hide where they go in underneath. Then push them in to the foam, right on the edge here. So it's all swishing this way. I'm making a little slot for this one. So it will travel through the aspidistra and soak up that much needed water. You could stop there and you would have a French styled arrangement finished there, but this is about wild grasses. So now let's get into the paspalum. I want them all exactly the same length. So bend them down and lay them down flat on the table. I need to know what is the length that is being required, so I'm taking the shortest one, I'm cutting it there. Will that go right over the top at that length? And I go, yes, so that can be the length of every single one of my pieces. Through the middle. And now we have these beautiful stalks. Take out any that's still got the seeds on top, that bend, that are thick, and then are going to create the stunning sheltering effect that we're looking for this design. Just feel for the end of your container, in case it's there. Push this down into the end, one end of it, roll it over, and pop it into the other side on the other end. This is a sheltering design. In Belgium with this style they use cane, but you use what you have, and I think this lovely green is actually nicer. So there's the shape, and I want them all exactly the same, and I'm going to put them probably 2 centimeters, 1 inch away from each other, as even as I can possibly make it. I'm going to do this right the way along till I get to the other end of the container. It's a cool little technique. It makes it look very different, and people are going to have to look through into the design. And all done, kept it as even as I possibly can going through, obviously being natural material rather than cane. We have the odd little kink and things, but it's a lovely design to look down into, called sheltering, modern, wild grasses like you've never seen them used before. In certain parts of the world like Turkey, wild grasses or cultivated grasses are always used for making wreaths. So I'm going to show you how to make one without having to use a wreath ring. And what you need is a branch. I picked this in winter because this is when you can get branches like this off a tree that have got no leaves on them. They are green and they are easy to just whip around into a circle. As soon as I turned it round into its circle back on itself like this, I then used paper covered wire to hold it all in place and threw it in a box and left it for 3 or 4 months until I was ready to do this. It is now very dry, and if I tried now to keep looping it, it would just shatter. But it is a wonderful base for a wreath. So just trim it up now that we're here, so that these bits will not sticking out. So we have as circular a piece as we can have. I've also got black real wire, using black because it disappears completely, and a whole bunch of these grasses. They've been in water, and you just grab a bundle of them, put them down like this, wind the wire around top where the seed heads are, secure it off, and wind round once. Now grab another bundle, splay them out a little bit, so that is now covering that wire with this set of seed heads, and wind round again. Continue this right the way around. It's extremely fast. And of course, as we're adding new seed heads and binding it, it's also binding the grass stems in. So as we go around, it's going to get thicker and thicker. This is a stunning wreath to put at your door to celebrate the start of spring. And as with all these grass designs, they do dry to the most beautiful golden brown. No matter what the grasses are, they're all mixed up. You'll need about half a bucket of these grasses to do this. And when you get back round to where you started, you're going to end up with all of these stalks here, and there's your starting point. So you tuck the stalks underneath here and keep on going round. them up. You don't want to flatten these ones too much. Till you've got right round to there. Now I'm turning it over to the side so you can still see there's the original wooden piece there. I'm going to cut these, not in a big clump, sort of layering as if like you're a hairdresser really. So that they then integrate the other side at the same volume of wild grasses, and yet they bound. So when we turn it back this way and have it all nice and flat, you can't really see that join too much. Cut the wire. And just tuck it in on itself. And that is the basis, as quick at that as of a grass wreath. Come off of your hanging up bits obviously. Now at this point you might decide you want to add a focal point in here, or you might want to add other textures. If you had calla lilies, you might put a little bit of floral foam here and wind the calla lilies around. Personally myself, I like this look. I like this look of the meadows and things like that. So I'm just going to get some everlasting flowers, some straw flowers, and pop them in here as a focal point before I put on my door. If you've got any pieces that are still a wee bit bald there, you can take any spare bits you have and just thread them in. As long as you're going in the same rhythm as the rest of it, going round this way, you can add all sorts of little bits and pieces in through there. Give it a quick hairspray, or if you have handy a shop that sells spray glue, that will work. Just all those little seeds, you don't want to go everywhere. And now we'll work on this little section here. Natural things go with grasses, so I've selected raffia, dried straw flowers, and the seed pods off the honesty. These appear on the plants in late winter, and I've saved these in boxes until they're needed. Start with the raffia, natural raffia, available at most wholesalers, because what is wonderful about natural raffia is that when it's wet, it actually gets stronger than when it's dry. I am just binding a little piece here to serve as a platform for the hot glue I am going to use, and it also will give me another series of loops to add to the ones I have already made. And here is a little selection I've previously made. I've tied a lot of raffia to form ribbons, glued the honesty seeds at the back, and two tiny little red straw flowers at the front, so adding these, just a little drop of glue onto there. While the wreath is green, it will pick up the green tinge of the honesty. As it gets browner, it will blend beautifully with that raffia. And just to make it slightly bigger, I'm going to put a few more of those straw flowers underneath. On that band, it gives it depth. Some more of those honesty seed pods, also just making the scale of the focal point bigger. So when I hang it on my door, the main area of interest is just coming out a little bit more. To hang it, I'm going to put a little bit of wire around the wire that is already there, and it's done. You'll need a little bit of forward planning for this one. Pick the frame, the branch, in winter. But the reward is there as soon as those grasses come available in late spring. I think the tallest grass that I know is what we call in New Zealand the toy. Another example is pampas grass. Huge big plants, and the blades are so dangerous because they will cut you like a paper cut. Really hurts. This time of year it is late spring, almost summer. The flower stems that normally have the fluffy tops on them have all died off, and we're left with this beautiful piece of stick. You look at it and say there's nothing beautiful about that, but I can tell you it has something that you really will want. So let's have a closer look. Now when I take this apart and cut another piece, put your finger in there and you get all these extra layers. Now that is the most perfect way to hide a flower tube. If you can get one of the right shape and put it in, it will sit there and completely disappear because it's hidden. You must be already thinking of ways that you can use that. The even better thing is the pampas grass itself loves hot glue. You will be able to stick anything to it, including this plastic tube. Put the hot glue on there, pop it in, and it will be stuck for life. Now let's go back to the original one, and now I can reveal its secret. So you thought I just had 3 pieces of pampas there, didn't you? Haha, let's look at the other end, and there it is, the flower tubes, completely hidden inside it. So you can do great big flower arrangements and layer these and make the most magnificent piece. But let's get on with the design. You're going to need some brown paper, a hot glue gun, a board of some sort. This is what we know as chipboard. It's pieces of timber that have all been chopped up, glue added of some sort, and then pressed, used for flooring. This one possibly a centimetre deep. Just a scrap of that. I've just made an organic swirl like this. Once you've done that, cut the same shape out on your chipboard. Jigsaw it's very quick to do. Just clamp the piece of scrap to your workbench and saw away in your organic shape. So now you've got that shape in paper and you've also got it in your chipboard. What we're going to do is start chopping. We're going to have it taller one end than the other, graduation going down, and the maximum height I can do on mine is about to here. So my first cut is going to be my height. I'm not going to have them all even. It will look very cool if you have enough time to make them all incredibly even. You can see as we get down to the bottom of the stalk, you can no longer take layers off it. It's now very hard, almost bamboo-like. But carry on pulling out all these extra pieces and start gluing them together. It's my maximum height. Very hard this end, so sharp secateurs will get them sharpened. Hot glue is on. So glue at the bottom, just 3 dabs of it. You'll probably go through 4 sticks of hot glue, and to start off hold it just like that. Somebody might be able to help you. The next one on and build them up. And after you've done maybe 6 or 7 of these, it will stand up by itself, and you're following the line that you made on this piece of paper. It's just your guideline. So another one, and these outside coatings are obviously a lot thinner here, but they still work really well. So I put one on in there, and then I say, oh, I now need to have one that I've already hidden a tube in, and put that one on. Now you don't know where you want the flowers at this stage, so if you want to leave putting those tubes into later, it's very easy just to glue them in. I prepared them earlier simply because it was quicker for me to sit down and just glue 10-15 of them all at once. Alright, so I'm building up here until it gets to the point that it can stand alone, and when it does that, I can then sit down in a chair and spend a happy half an hour, 20 minutes gluing them on. Putting them on the paper is really cool because what it's doing is it's making me check that I've got them at 90-degree angles and that the bottoms are all flat. Alright, so I'm going to carry on right the way along here, and when I get to the bottom I'm going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. This one I have already done. Just turn it around, you're looking at the back right now. This design definitely has a back at the front because of where it's going in the bank. So that's the front of it. And just to show you the parts, if I put it up like this, you'll see where all of the test tubes are hidden inside those. They completely disappear, but if you look hard you can see one there and you can see one over here. They do disappear because it is such a perfect disguise. You also see that I just cut smaller and smaller and smaller to get that wonderful graduation. Once I had finished it, I just slid it onto my prepared board. There it is. It was in the shape, exactly the same shape. It was very easy to just sandpaper around the edges to make it look a little bit like a beach, hot glue onto it, and then the assembly went on top. And this makes it not only really easy to carry, it means I can use it several times. I'm going to put fresh flowers in the test tubes, but I've just added the straw flowers, and they are not in test tubes, they are simply glued in place, and I've added a little pin to give them some interest there. So this is almost the end of this design. All up possibly took me 45 minutes so far. So now we can start adding the fresh flowers. Use a syringe that you can get from your local veterinary clinic. They're used for dosing horses. And this has got flower water in it. The bank is a pretty hot place, and the flowers need as much help as they can to survive there. Just on placement, as I was placing the test tubes, I was very aware of Fibonacci's numbers, so I placed the test tubes so we've got 1, 1, 2 at the back here, 5 sitting there, so that when I put the flowers in they will be grouped right up to the top flower here. I'm going to use the same form, so we're going to have the round of the pampas grass, the round of the straw flowers, and the round of the calendulas. I have graduated the calendulas from the biggest to the smallest because I want the biggest ones on the tallest part of the design, and then coming down to the smallest ones on the smallest part of the design. You can see they are long flower tubes, and if the stem goes to the bottom of the flower tube, when I fill it with water, as it's drinking it's always able to get to the last drop of water. It's a facing forward design. I've put some test tubes at the back just for the customers to enjoy at the back, so I put the second biggest one in that side, and then down we go. smaller and smaller. Let's go down to the base. Orange and brown are related on the colour wheel. Brown is actually a shade of orange. That's why they get on so well together. Alright, so we have all these round forms, and it's going to be lovely and bright to walk into, but we're going to want just a little bit of variety, contrast and form. So I've got these little succulents, and I've also got some euphorbia. Euphorbia lasts extremely well. It's a lovely lime green which really lifts any design. So first thing is pop in these little succulents, contrast or form, in any of the tubes that are empty still. See, we're having a wee bit of variety and interest in there. I might find another little test tube to pop some more of these down the bottom here. And then the euphorbia. Now euphorbia has got a milk that comes out of it, to which I am extremely allergic to. If you are too, just remember not to touch that milky part. And the euphorbia adds another green contrast. So depending what you've got available from your wholesaler, from your garden, just keep thinking something bright and round, a contrast which is also forming a trail up for your eye, and then fill in with little bits of interesting things that are noticed last. It keeps it interesting. And there it is, all ready to be delivered. A cool trick when you're wanting to cover a test tube when you're using pampas grass, like this test tube here, you can see I've added it and it's taller than the grass itself. If you've got a box of bits, these are all the scraps left over, and find one of them that'll fit around there. Cut it to size. These are like the thinnest pieces of veneer or bark. Just a fabulous resource. Tiniest bit of glue, you don't need heaps on this one. Pop it around the tube at the top there, and it is instantly disguised. This is a lovely little design. If you've got a flower girl for a wedding, or you're going visiting somebody in hospital where they haven't got a lot of space to put things like beside a bed, find yourself a dainty little bucket or a sweet little basket. It's got a handle. It's going to be easy for you then to carry, but it's also going to be lovely when they can receive it with their wee handle. Also going to use our wonderful paspalum stems again, and just a few of the mossing tins. I'm going to do some weaving. Measure across the diameter of the container you're using. It doesn't have to be a circular one, and that will be the length that you need for your weaving. So cut yourself several of these paspalums. Remember, the fresher they are, the easier it's going to be for you. As soon as they've been drying, even for a day out of water, they will start to cause problems. I'll probably need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces going that way and 8 the other, so it's a circle. So we put 8 down. The normal weave in and out and in and out all the way along. If you want to get really clever, you can actually do over 2 under 1, over 2 under 1, and you'll get a really beautiful pattern, which if you look closely at twill material is what twill pattern is, over 2 under 1, and then the next row you move along 1. But this is just a very simple over 1 under 1, and the second row is the opposite. The grass will tell you when it doesn't want to go in anymore. It will start to break down. Yes, you can do this with steel grass, and you can do it with bare grass if you don't have access to a paddock. I'm holding it with this hand, it's just making it easier to keep it all together as we start. This is a super idea also to teach children. So you're not only teaching them to weave, teaching them how to do flower arrangements that are no cost, and of course a lovely gift if they've got a favourite nana or someone in hospital. So I'm just spending a little bit of time now straightening everything up. Check the measurement that will, yes, it's going to go across there, but just need to do a little bit of straightening here and there. If you've got a handle, remember to put the handle up and thread these through. So it can still be carried, and then secure the corners. I have got these long pronged mossing pins, and just pop those into the corners. And a little tiny bit of glue on these pieces that are sticking out, just the smallest amount. You can use proper floral adhesive if you've got it, but if this is a project for a young child, this is quicker. You could always use pins, you could also wire them. It's just keeping those little ones there in place. Now with the grid, you don't want to hide what you've just done with that lovely weaving, so you're only going to put just a few little plants, flowers and things in it. I'm going to put in the seed heads of the paspalum in a little group. Don't have to be that long though. These are the ones that I cut off originally. But when you see them not as little weeds that everybody moans about that's in their lawn, they're actually standing up tall. For me they remind me a little bit of giraffes. They are an interesting form in their own right, in my opinion. Here we've got this beautiful Queen Anne's lace again. Pop in another corner. A nod to the origins of that lovely weaving. These are just a little nod to it. Before we add a few more of the more commercial flowers, such as these gerbras, calendulas. But try not to cover up that grid completely. Now some much smaller little flowers, so we're not hiding that grid. These are little Federation daisies. Cut them long, you can actually see through them into the grid itself, so you've got this piece here where it's showing what it's happening, and a couple more on that side, so this is just becoming, as you're coming around, and more interesting. And then, just like the hairdresser does, cut the ends so they're all nice and even. And there you have a lovely little arrangement that's fully portable. It's a little quirky. You can see a little bit of weaving from a clever child. It's a lovely little gift using grasses. if you don't like the look of that floral foam in the base there, you can always cover it at the very beginning with an aspidistra leaf. For me, it makes it easy for somebody who is not well to be able to just pour some water in there and it's done. You need to put in there. So I hope you've enjoyed this series on grasses. It is a wonderful resource, particularly if you look at all parts of it and just get a little creative.